jump right into a great conversation with a good guest here, Mason County Commissioner Kevin Shutty. Morning, Kevin.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
Good. Thanks for coming on. I have you in here to kind of update us all throughout the week. We've, of course, been reporting on different pieces of information out on coronavirus. And yesterday, Dave Windham and Dr. Stein were in to talk a little bit about it from their perspective. And then later in the day, you along with your county commissioners put forth a proclamation, emergency proclamation yesterday. And so first let's talk about what that means. Sure. And I think at least we got caught up a little bit in discrepancy on the verbiage there, and so how that stuff works out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you having me on to talk about it. It's an important issue. It's obviously kind of front and center for a lot of folks right now, and there's a lot of information and news coming out, and so I appreciate having the opportunity to talk about it. We did do a proclamation of emergency yesterday. That's sort of a precursor to a declaration of emergency. There's not a whole lot of difference other than we're just saying, hey, there are steps that we're taking in order to be prepared to confront this should the situation worsen. It mirrors what the governor's proclamation did earlier this week or late last week, and it puts us in a position to take advantage of the state and federal money that's going to be coming in to combat coronavirus in our communities. And so it's not a reason for people to be fearful. It's just it's the county saying that we are putting together a response. We're prepared. And then we're going to work with our state and federal partners in order to have the best response possible.
So the phrase proclamation, and again, I looked up the definitions, and I was having a real difficult time trying to determine the difference here. And, of course, we want to make sure we have the information right there. But if it doesn't really, if the declaration is the main thing, why would you put forth the proclamation, which would, cause a lot of concern out there?
Sure. And a lot of it is just procedure.
Okay.
It's the steps that we have to take in order to continue to work through the process. What we're doing right now is we have an incident command center that's open, that's being staffed by folks from public health and our Department of Emergency Management. And it sort of puts those processes into motion so that we can coordinate better with all of our local partners and our partners at the state and federal level.
Is there something from you as the county commissioners can do to keep things coordinated between the other first responders and things like this? We notice that Lake Cushman Fire Department is scaling back certain activities for the sake of safeguarding its staff against coronavirus. Obviously, that was a decision made by Lake Cushman Fire Department, but when you have an offshoot like that, making a decision like that, does that not kind of muddy the message a little too? Or?
Well, we've been working closely with first responders throughout the county. Dave Windham and Dr. Dan Stein, our county health officer who you had on yesterday, have been working to coordinate with not only the fire districts, but with Mason General Hospital, Franciscan, Harrison, and Belfair, and really trying to make sure that we're, having a unified message, a unified response throughout the county. Certainly, I think it's appropriate to defer to individual jurisdictions if they feel that it's important for them to scale things back that are, maybe not mandatory at the time. I think that should be up to their discretion. Just as we saw with the closure of Mount View Elementary School, the school district, out of an abundance of caution, felt that it was appropriate to shut the school for a day and do a deep clean. Totally understand that, but I don't think the public should read into that as saying that our entities are doing anything other than working out of an abundance of caution. We're seeing some cases predominantly over in the King County area. Yeah. That seems to be where the epicenter of this is in Washington State. It's been pretty limited here, just a couple of issues that are in fact related to what happened over in Kirkland. And so, jurisdictions should have the flexibility to address things as they see fit. But as we've been trying to tell folks when we've been meeting with them and talking with constituents, we're also at the peak of cold and flu season. It's important to practice good hygiene, good hand washing and cough and sneeze etiquette. Take all those precautions. These are things that may have already been, happening in response to, high cases of influenza and cold season. So I don't think we should be getting in the way of local jurisdictions making those decisions for their organizations. But at the same time, I don't think that folks in Mason County should be overly concerned about precautions that are being taken.
In a general sense, how is the county set up for remote working, in a sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been working unrelated to coronavirus on putting together telecommute policies and things like that to give people flexibility, especially, as I mentioned, we are, in the middle of cold and flu season.
Yeah.
So, the important thing is if people can, if they're under the weather, if they're not feeling well, if they can take off, they should. They should be using their leave. I think we've been pretty clear about that to our staff at the county. Obviously, there are some folks in jobs that don't have, the ability to do that, as much as some others. But when you can, stay home, and the work will continue, and
Sure.
for the most case, it'll be there when you come back.
Yeah, it will.
And so we just want to make sure that people are being aware of that and taking advantage of leave if they have it, and we need to look at those things maybe anyway.
Sure. Before, I know Spencer has a question, but again, just want to make sure that it is out there. All the cases that have come out of coronavirus, COVID-19, are all in the greater Seattle area, and especially right around that Kirkland area where that Life Care Center was. Again, nothing necessarily outside of that in that area. All 39 are in the greater Seattle area.
You read my mind on that, because I have a lot of friends and family all across the country, and they're all concerned, of course, and they see Washington State as kind of this epicenter in America anyway, where all but one of the deaths, I believe, have been in Washington State. And people need to realize, most of them from that single nursing home, as Jeff pointed out, in King County, and thank goodness that it's kind of isolated, I guess. And that, I would think, is a good sign for, in terms of how easily this is transmitted, or you would think 10% of Seattle would be sick or something. So I guess that's the good news in this, maybe, is that even in China, where people are kind of wall to wall, a lot more congested, the majority of people don't have this, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that's a good sign.
I think that's a really helpful point. We're working hard to identify, what people should be looking out for. We're learning more and more about COVID-19 as more and more resources come available. But we are seeing it relatively localized here, at least in the King County area. And I know their public health folks are working hard, on their response as well. And I think it's, the Vice President Mike Pence is coming to visit Washington today. He's going to be down in Olympia meeting with Governor Inslee and folks from the State Department of Health and legislators. I'm really appreciative of him making the trip out to Washington in order to kind of understand what's happening on the ground here. Hopefully he takes that back to D.C. with him and continues to work on, getting the resources that we need from the federal government here to help our neighbors over in King County. But I also want to say a word of thanks to our legislators in Olympia for passing a funding bill this week, about $100 million from the state's rainy day fund, in order to go to local public health jurisdictions and the State Department of Health as they respond to it. This is a good reminder of what we all ought to be doing in order to be prepared, not just for kind of a viral outbreak, but other natural disasters that might occur. It's a good time to check your earthquake kit and make sure that you have food and medicine on hand if you can, and other supplies that become critical when there's an emergency situation. And so I just caution people to go about your life. Don't change too much about your life, but be mindful of some of the risks that are out there, and work to be prepared. Work to mitigate those, and make sure you're taking care of yourself and your families. As you can imagine, the commission is, we hear quite a bit from people that are concerned. There's nothing to suggest right now that we should be fearful. There is a lot to suggest that we need to be prepared. We go to a lot of public events and functions. We're interacting with a lot of people every day. I'm certainly not changing my approach to my work and being out in the community. And I would encourage people that if you're feeling good and you're healthy, stay that way. Do what it takes to stay that way. Don't necessarily make drastic changes to your life because of a proclamation that we issued. But use common sense. Wash your hands. And if you're sick, stay home.
Yeah. Well, good to hear from you this morning. Again, on the website, co.mason.wa.us, there's a lot of links that are available, and you guys are getting constant updates on these. When it comes to some of the earlier in the week briefings and maybe anything in the future, are those for the commissioners and the department heads, or is that an opportunity for the public to come into those? Or
yeah, all of our briefings are open to the public.
Okay.
As are our regular business meetings on Tuesday mornings. I know our Tuesday meetings are live streamed on the web on our website. So if you're interested, there's going to be information coming out both on the regular Tuesday meetings and through our briefings, as well as through the county's public health Facebook and website. So stay tuned to those things. They're a good source of information, as is the State Department of Health. But if you're sick, don't come to our public briefings.
Yeah.
Be responsible.
Be responsible. Thank you, Kevin, for coming in here.